So if we're able to solve the problem of getting a smart grid, we also need to solve the problem of generation, and that's where I come in. I think I like power generation a lot, even from university. So I'll focus on Nigeria because a lot of global not nations, they probably have the power settled. Maybe what they want to do is now increase their renewable energy fraction. But when it comes to some global south nations, we have some power generation constraints which we'll try to talk about and look for proper solutions on what you and I can do to be able to push Nigerian power sector forward. My name is Gbubemi Akporhonor. I'm the co-founder of Sustainability. This is my LinkedIn, so I didn't write a full story, but I have a couple of expertise and experience, particularly in the energy sector and also human capital development. In 2022, from April 2022 to beginning of 2023, that's January 2023, that's about 8 months, I authored and published 4 books. I published the 5th one this year, but I wrote that one in that span. So I wrote 5 books in 8 months. Last year, I collaborated for 6 published articles. I currently have 3 articles under review. One with 2 with Taylor and Francis, and the other one with Sage UK. I've done about 100 plus presentations since 2021. Last year, I did 10 plus outreaches that have to do with human capital development across rural Nigeria. I reviewed about 200 since my time in Craftfield. I probably reviewed over 400 articles. So this needs to be updated. And I read 20 books in 2023, and I'm on my 4th book in 2024. So just to say a bit about myself. So what's the problem we're trying to look at? You see, approximately 71% of Nigeria's population, according to IEA, does not have access to energy. So this energy includes electricity, clean cooking facilities, and other modern fuels. This has actually brought the Nigerian government to come into a place where we're trying to achieve universal energy access by 2030. However, the energy sector in Nigeria faces 3 main constraints: insufficient power generation, inadequate infrastructure, which has to do with our grid. Our grid is not the best in the moment. We actually need to work on improving our grid. Apparently, only about 54 point something percent of Nigeria population or Nigerian homes and industries are connected to the grid. We also have high levels of energy poverty, which comes with material poverty across the nation and economic recession, and even the devaluation of our currency that's currently happening today. But I want to focus on generation capacity. In 2021, Nigeria required about 29 terawatt hour. I hope I'm not talking too techy or too powery, but we required 29 terawatt hour energy demand. So that's what we needed to satisfy so if we wanted to satisfy everybody in Nigeria with energy supply, that's power, electrical energy, we needed 29 terawatt hour. But we're only able to provide, or the generation capacity was only able to bring about 740 kilowatt hour. So less than 2% of Nigerian load was met in that year. So over 98% of the energy requirement in Nigeria was not met in 2021, which is over about 28 terawatt hour load requirements that's yet to be met. So that's why generation is a very, very important topic for Nigeria. So we need more generation capacity. If we're going to be able to bring about clean, sustainable, and secure energy, that's the energy trilemma in Nigeria, we need more generation capacity. So how do we solve this generation insufficiency? There are 2 ways. We go to renewables, which have their own problem with intermittency, looking for maybe storage systems to be able to support them, or transition fuels. Nigeria has about 15 gigawatts installed capacity right now, plus the if you add the Abia State IPP integrated power plant that just came into operation, it makes it about 15 plus, because that one is about 0.141 gigawatts. So we're over 15 gigawatts installed capacity, which cannot account for what we need. So we need to also factor, we are moving to net zero. So we can't use coal anymore. We can't be trying to bring about coal power plants. We need to focus on renewable energies, and at some point now transition for us, which is using gas turbines. So I'll just read this from the Executive Vice President of Wando Clean Energy. It says the global renewable energy sector is what? Massive, and is growing at a fast pace. Africa must do what it takes to leverage these opportunities and close the energy gap to avoid falling into deeper poverty. So it's our time. The technology is already out there. We do not need to innovate. A lot of times we are kind of on the good side, because innovation comes, which is not very good, but innovation comes from global not nations, and they are scalable. They bring them in modular parts, and we can scale it to whatever size we want. So it is there. They are floating. They are currently, the UK currently has a pilot plant of floating offshore wind technology. There are offshore wind turbines out there. There are solar panels. They are constantly improving them, constantly improving batteries and all of that. So it's there. It's just for us to now tap into it to solve our energy problem. So the Nigerian generation mix, I just want to quick. If you look quickly, 70% of Nigerian generation comes from gas, while only 30% comes from renewable. And amongst that 30%, hydro has about 27%. So our solar, our bioenergy, and other fossil fuels, maybe wind and all of that, have very, very little. If you look at this graph shows that the total renewable energy capacity in Nigeria from 2011 to 2022, that's 10 years. In 10 years, we've added only about 0.04 gigawatts in installed renewable capacity. So we can do better. We have the resources. We have resources for onshore wind. We have resources for offshore wind. We have resources for solar energy. For normal solar PV, and some parts of the northern Nigeria can actually use CSP. Then also we have resources for hydroelectric power. But our focus is wind energy. But you might ask, why wind energy? Wind energy is actually the second largest renewable resource after solar energy. It's the fastest growing renewable energy globally. And experts have an ambitious 2,000 gigawatts installed global capacity ambition by 2050. So they are saying, for us to get to net zero, what we actually need in terms of the wind industry is we need to install 2,000 gigawatts. It's actually even offshore capacity. And this looks really, really ambitious. But if you check the progress, if you look at the progression, I don't have it here. If you look at the progression of how China in a few years started from very, very little and upscaled to being the highest producer or highest installed capacity in the world. If you look at the amount of plants that the UK are putting out, they also have plants in the pipeline. So countries are making efforts, and they mean serious business to transition to net zero. So we need to tap into this. The Nigerian wind energy status rather. Where are we now, and where do we want to be? You see, we did a literature review of a couple of, I think, I can't remember how many, but a couple of papers, and both great literature and academic journals, to determine where is Nigeria in right now in terms of our wind energy status, and where do we want to be. So I got this map from the sources, the NatMet department. If you look very closely across, let me get my pointer. If you look very closely across the northern Nigeria, Sokoto, Zamfara, Katsina, across this side, we have wind speed above 6 meters per second. So there's actually good enough wind potential to actually, and see, this land mass is very, very big, because we know that the northern Nigeria has a lot of land mass. So we actually have enough potential to be able to install a great number of wind capacity that can help us, provide a great fraction of the generation requirements in Nigeria. Just a few comparisons. So this chart is basically global wind energy capacity. China is the top 20 countries. I'll move quickly to installed capacity in Africa. The highest, if you look at this graph, Africa has only 8 gigawatts. This is where the whole of Africa is, compared to the other 20 nations. See Europe here, US, China. China is leading currently. Africa has 8 gigawatts installed capacity. That's out of 2020. And South Africa leads with about 3 gigawatts, Egypt 1.6, Morocco 1.4, and Nigeria has about 3 megawatts. That's 0.003 gigawatts. This is how Nigeria compares to the top 3 global, sorry, top 5 global, top 3 in Africa, and Nigeria. This is how we compare. So where do we need to be? You see, considering the amount of resource we have a lot of wind resource. Our study actually showed us that wind energy we have enough wind energy potential across northern Nigeria, then the north central of Nigeria, hilly eastern regions like the Obudu Ranch, as well as good offshore wind potential, not so close to our shores, but if you move a bit further, maybe about a few kilometers further, you still have good offshore wind potential. And with technologies like floating offshore wind turbines coming out, we actually can harness that and solve a good portion of our generation problem. So we have the resources, we have wind resources, yet we are not tapping into it. In fact, I did, when I was doing this research, I looked at about 10 different articles. I was trying to determine, because they were saying different things, considering the Kaduna 10 megawatt wind farm. Some articles were like, it's working, but it's working below capacity. I think there's one particular, I can't remember it right now. I should have checked it before time. Sorry. They was actually showing zero. One very, very reputable database that was showing zero, but bulk of them was telling us that it's working far, far below operating capacity. So what we concluded in this our study is that the disparity between Nigerian wind energy potential and the low exploitation underscores the need to increase investment in the Nigerian wind energy sector and better policy implementation, because Nigeria has a lot of policies, but they are not properly implemented. So what can we do differently as people? If we're going to be able to fix Nigeria generation problem, you and I must come in. We can't leave it for just the government. We can't leave it for just investors. We need to do the small we can. You need to begin to say, what can I do today to position myself in the next 10 to 5 years to be able to contribute to solving Nigerian problems? Today, you might not be able to do a lot. Today, you can tell a friend, you can get educated, you can, read articles, you can, acquire the knowledge. You might not have the resources to be able to solve the problem, but you need to be aware of the problem, and you need to be able to strategically position yourself in a place that, in the next 5 to 10 years, you're among the decision makers, so that you can actually solve this Nigerian problem. Today is the day for us to begin to make decisions that will affect our future. And how can you do this? You can get sustainably educated. Join Sustainability Z. Just, what you need to do is you sign up on our mailing list so that you get updated in all our events. We'll begin to do bi-monthly events like this that begin to bring to you the innovations happening in global north nations, what you need to we'll tackle what you need to learn, where you need to learn these things, provide resources, provide mentorship and network opportunities for youth across global south nations to position them to be able to contribute to a sustainable future. So this is the link again, in the QR code again. In case you didn't scan it, it gives you where you can get you can follow us on LinkedIn and sign up to our mailing list to be able to get updates on our future events. So I'll just give you a few minutes to scan it. Then also, if you want to learn more about the research, is titled Nigerian Wind Energy Status. It was published by Sage, Wind Engineering, Sage UK. So you can just search it on Google Scholar, Scopus. It's high impact. So if you search it on one of all those, you'll be able to see it quickly, or you can check our Google DOI. But just encourage you, just check it, Nigerian Wind Energy Status, one of the authors' names, and then you'd get it. Thank you for listening. I remain Gbubemi Akporhonor, co-founder, Sustainability Z.